The sun rose over the village, but instead of birdsong, the air trembled with the deep, unsettling beat of war drums. Children clung to their mothers, elders leaned on their staffs, and whispers of fear ran through the crowd like wildfire. At the center of it all stood Bolaji, his legs trembling like bamboo in the wind. Before him loomed the strangers, their tools gleaming in the morning light, ready to claim the land that was not theirs. The villagers surged forward with voices loud and spirits burning hotter than the midday sun. The strangers held their ground, smirking as if victory already belonged to them. The air shook with shouting, until one stone flew, then another, and the battle erupted like fire on dry grass. Bolaji ducked as a stone whizzed past his ear. Dust rose thick around him, children cried in the distance, goats scattered in panic. He tried to step back, but the clash raged in every direction, drawing him deeper into the storm. The elders called his name, their voices heavy with expectation, as though destiny itself had pushed him onto a stage he never asked for. In his panic, Bolaji snatched the staff lying on the ground. He waved it wildly, not in courage but in fear, simply trying to carve out a space to breathe. Yet, by sheer accident, the staff struck one of the stranger's tools, sending it crashing to the earth. The crowd gasped. The villagers cheered. The stranger staggered back in shock. To every eye, Bolaji had just led the first victory. With new courage, the villagers charged again, their hearts pounding with belief. The strangers faltered, their pride cracking like clay in the rain. And at the center of it all stood Bolaji, staff raised high, his heart hammering harder than the war drums. The reluctant young man who wanted only escape was now the symbol of resistance. At last, the strangers retreated, their swagger gone, their tools abandoned in the dust. The villagers erupted with joy, lifting Bolaji onto their shoulders as though he had been their commander all along. The land was safe. The people were victorious. And Bolaji, despite himself, was their hero. That night, beneath the bright silver of a full moon, the village celebrated. Drums of war turned into drums of victory, palm wine flowed like a river, roasted yam and fish filled the air with their rich aroma. And at the center of it all sat Bolaji, his name chanted with pride, his story woven into the songs of his people. They called him Savior, Defender, the Chosen One. But though his lips carried a forced smile, his heart twisted like rope pulled tight. Beside him, his mother's face glowed with joy. Her tears sparkled in the moonlight as she blessed him, thanking him for protecting their home, their land, their honor. To her, this was the proudest night of her life. To Bolaji, it was a prison built from love and praise. As the drums echoed into the night, Bolaji felt the weight of every cheer pressing down on his shoulders. Each clap of joy sounded like a chain locking him to the land he secretly longed to live. He had fought for them, yes, but he had not chosen this path. His true dream, the dream of escape, of Japa, still burned in him hotter than ever. When the fire burned low and the laughter softened, Bolaji slipped away from the crowd. He lifted his eyes to the star-filled sky, the same stars that shone over faraway lands where his future seemed to wait. In his hand, he clutched the worn paper with his name, a fragile reminder of the path he still wished to follow. The village called him a hero, but in his heart, he remained a restless dreamer. And as the night wind carried whispers of new troubles, Bolaji's journey was far from over. After the victory, Bolaji wore two faces. By day, he was the celebrated hero of the land, praised at every corner, his name echoing in songs and proverbs. But by night, his heart plotted escape, whispering to itself about embassies, visas, and flights that could carry him far from the dust of the village. Each cheer from the people felt like a chain binding him to the soil, while his dreams grew wings he could not yet spread. Bolaji began sneaking into the nearby town, where internet cafes buzzed with young men chasing foreign dreams. He filled forms, sent emails, and scrolled through promises of quick visas. His fingers typed with desperation, his eyes searching for hope between the lines of endless requirements. The villagers believed he was planning their defense against future strangers. In truth, he was planning his defense against destiny itself. One evening, 3 smooth-talking strangers arrived in the village, their smiles too wide and their shoes too polished for simple men. They spoke of connections abroad, of agents who could fast-track travel papers, of opportunities waiting beyond the sea. Their words flowed like palm wine, sweet and intoxicating, and soon, many of the village youth leaned in, ears hungry for escape. Bolaji's heart raced as he listened from the shadows. The strangers promised visas within weeks, guaranteed success, and new lives shining brighter than gold. But their eyes glimmered too much, and their laughter carried a sharpness hidden beneath the sweetness. Deep down, Bolaji knew the scent of trickery, but his desperation painted every lie with the color of hope. The village elders, tired from the recent battle for the land, welcomed the strangers as though they were messengers of fortune. They blessed their words, nodded at their promises, and urged the youth to prepare for journeys abroad. Songs of freedom rose again, this time not against invaders, but against the invisible walls of poverty. Bolaji found himself at a crossroads. On one hand, his victory had chained him to the land as protector. On the other, these new strangers dangled the very key he longed for. At night, he imagined himself walking into the airport, passport in hand, leaving the chaos behind. By day, he saw the same strangers like grains and feared what lay beneath them. Days passed, and one eager young man handed the tricksters all his savings, convinced his ticket abroad was ready. Weeks later, his money vanished, and the strangers shrugged with excuses as smooth as their polished shoes. Whispers of doubt began to spread. The laughter of the tricksters grew quieter, but Bolaji's desire roared louder, drowning out caution. One night, under the faint glow of a lantern, Bolaji approached the tricksters in secret. He listened to their golden promises, his palms sweating, his heart torn between fear and hope. The men leaned closer, painting pictures of cities with endless lights, jobs waiting on every corner, and streets paved with opportunity. The more they spoke, the more Bolaji's dream of escape began to outweigh his fear of fraud. Yet, even as Bolaji wrestled with his choice, his mother watched him with suspicion. She saw his restless eyes, his distracted spirit, and she feared that her son's victory on the land was only the beginning of a new battle, one between wisdom and foolishness. She prayed under her breath that he would not stumble into a trap set by desperate men. And so, Bolaji stood on the edge of decision, caught between two prisons, duty to his people and the lure of the unknown. The strangers waited, their promises sweet but poisonous. His mother's prayers lingered, her voice trembling in the silence of the night. And above him, the stars shone like watchful eyes, witnesses to a choice that could change everything. In the quiet of dawn, Mama sat by the doorway, her hands busy peeling cassava, but her eyes fixed on Bolaji. She had noticed his restless steps, the way his mind wandered even when his body sat still. Victory had made him a hero to the village, but to her, he was still her son, the boy whose thoughts now floated far beyond the fields and palm trees of their home. One morning, as she swept the room, her broom touched something beneath Bolaji's sleeping mat. She bent down and pulled out a folded paper, worn at the edges from being held too often. When she opened it, her heart pounded. It was not a prayer note, nor a school book. It was a list, foreign embassies, visa requirements, strange addresses scribbled in Bolaji's handwriting. Momo's fears were confirmed, her son was preparing to fly. That evening, Momo's eyes filled with tears as she cooked yam for supper. She stirred the pot slowly, her mind heavy with questions. Was it wrong to want a better life? Was it selfish to leave the land they had fought to protect? She loved her son deeply, yet she feared the world he longed for, a world she did not trust, built on promises she could not see. At night, under the dim glow of the lantern, Mama called Bolaji to sit before her. With trembling hands, she placed the folded paper between them. Her voice was soft, yet firm, carrying the weight of both love and fear. She asked no questions, for the paper had already spoken. Instead, she reminded him of the land, the people, the heritage he would leave behind. Each word was a plea, wrapped in the quiet strength only a mother's heart could carry. Bolaji sat with bowed head, unable to meet her eyes. His silence was louder than any defense. His mother's words struck deep, yet his dreams burned hotter still. He wanted to speak, to explain, but his tongue felt tied by the very weight of his desires. And so, the silence stretched, heavy and unbroken, until the night swallowed it whole. Days turned into weeks, and Bolaji's restlessness grew. He began to whisper with the tricksters, to plan in secret, to save coins hidden in an old calabash beneath his bed. He told no one, not even his closest friends, for he knew the village would never let their hero leave so easily. To them, he was a savior. To himself, he was a prisoner planning his escape. The pressure grew unbearable. The villagers wanted him to lead new committees, to sit in meetings, to guide the youth. Songs of his bravery were sung at every gathering. But every cheer pushed him further from joy, every praise reminded him of the life he did not choose. And so, one moonless night, Bolaji packed his small bag. Inside were only the essentials, clothes, a little food, and the secret papers that carried his hope. But a mother's spirit never sleeps. As Bolaji crept toward the door, his bag slung over his shoulder, Mama stirred from her mat. She called his name softly, not in anger, but in sorrow. He froze, his heart hammering louder than the night crickets. She did not rise, nor demand, nor curse. She only whispered a prayer that his steps would not lead him into darkness. That gentle blessing pierced Bolaji's heart deeper than any warning could. Bolaji did not leave that night. He set the bag down, and lay awake till dawn, torn between two worlds, his mother's love and his own desperate longing. He promised himself he would try again soon. The dream of Japa could be delayed, but not killed. And so, his escape plan remained alive, hidden in the shadows of his restless heart. The village continued to sing his name, the tricksters continued to whisper, and his mother continued to pray. Bolaji stood at the center of it all, torn like cloth pulled from both ends. And though he stayed, the fire in his eyes burned brighter than ever, warning that the day of departure would surely come. Bolaji thought the hardest part was getting the visa. But he had no idea what awaited him next. Subscribe now, the journey to abroad is about to take a shocking turn. Don't miss what happens next. Thank you for watching.